morning.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, I'm doing well.
So, I have to say that I really admire you.
Oh, thank you.
You're such a beautiful and talented lady.
That's very kind of you to say.
Yeah, so, it's such a great honor for me to be here and have a conversation with you today.
Absolutely. Well, we are glad to have you here, and it's wonderful to be able to get this message out.
So, my first question is that what motivated you to become a journalist?
You know, it's funny, I didn't set out to become a journalist. I originally was going to become an attorney. I registered pre-law. I even worked in a law firm in high school. And I just decided after doing it for a while that it really wasn't something that I enjoyed. So I just made a change to TV journalism. It's something that we always watched. We always watched the news at night with my family. And I was always intrigued about how people were able to tell stories and the change that you can actually affect by getting out there and giving a voice to people. And to me, it was exciting. It was a way to see the world in a different view, and that attracted me to it. And from there, I just kept going, and here we are.
So people usually say that media in the United States, particularly broadcast journalism, is a pretty tough field for Asian Americans to get into and to succeed at. However, you did it. So what have been the most difficult challenges that you have had?
Well, I think it's tough for anyone nowadays, just because it's so crowded now. Today, when you look at the landscape, there are many more minorities, whether it be Asian Americans or Latinos or African Americans. But when I started out, I didn't really see anyone that looked like me, anyone that had my background. There wasn't anyone that was per se a role model that I could say, you know what, that's what I want to aspire to be. So I just really worked on the craft, and so that to me was the best way forward, because it allowed me to be the best me that I can be, since that's really your only calling card in this business. That's the way that you get ahead, because there's no one else that can be like you. And when there's so many people in the field trying to get that position, and there's only so many, because you have over 200 stations throughout the U.S., TV stations, and from that you only have so many spots on air. And to get into one of those, you have to be good at what you do, but we pretty much all do the same thing, right? So how do you set yourself apart? You do it in your own personal way, because each of us is very distinct, we're very different. And so I just really tried to craft my trade and my skills in that way, and no one else can be like you, right? So might as well put that best foot forward.
So for those many years, what were the most critical lessons that you have learned?
I've learned that you really have to prepare. That in this business, because especially in the day and age of YouTube and social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, now it's Snapchat, and all these, Periscope, and all these other ones that I don't know how to operate, everything is out there. The good, the bad, the ugly, and it lives on in infamy. So if you're not on your game, you're going to be remembered and recognized for probably a misstep more than an achievement. So the best thing to do is be prepared always, and keep working at it and growing and learning. Every day I think we're all learning.
During your years of working for many television networks, what have you liked and disliked the most?
Wow, what have I liked? Well, I love working with a team and putting stories together on the air. I think it's great because with our show in particular, we get together, we discuss all the stories that are out there, the good, the bad, the ugly, what we like, what we don't like, what is controversial, what might not be controversial. And it's exciting and it's educational for all of us. And it's kind of like that water cooler talk. What's going to be interesting to our viewers, but it's also what's interesting to us and what matters to us and what we think will matter to the audience. But at the same time, once you get out there and the lights go on and the show is live, there's a sense of excitement about that as well, especially when you're in breaking news and it's very critical what you're trying to say and the information you're trying to bring. And unfortunately, it occurs during some of the saddest or the most dramatic times. But for me as a journalist, I think the reason why I enjoy breaking news is because I know that things are happening very quickly and what we're saying is developing, and we're showing you the story as it's progressing in real time, and that's exhilarating. But I also love the ability to go out and tell stories and give a voice to people who haven't been able to speak up. I've done stories in Vietnam before of people who have struggled and who need aid. I've traveled to Africa, I've traveled to Myanmar, I've traveled to Latin America, Mexico in particular, and told stories about people who were either in need or had faced immense hardships. And to me, that's important. That's important because it gives you, as a viewer, an eye on a part of the world that you may not have seen, and a part of the world that you might be able to affect in a positive way. And without the ability of us doing that, then people in need may not get what they would be able to get in the form of assistance if it wasn't for us. So that's important. What have I disliked about the business? I love morning television, but I'm not going to lie. The hours are hard. It is difficult, the hours that we work. It's getting up early, staying late, or even vice versa. We're always on. I mean, because you never know when news is going to break, and if something major happens, it doesn't matter what your shift is. It's all hands on deck. So it's a business that really runs pretty much 24 hours a day, and while we're not here all of those 24 hours, there could be a time when something major happens that we're going to be here hours and hours on end. And that can be difficult, but at the same time, you know, look, it's part of the business.
So right now you're an anchor for NBC's Early Today, and MS, NBC's First Look, and a correspondent for NBC's Today Show. So what is it like doing your job? How's your day?
How's my day? You know, my day's pretty packed. I mean, I anchor 2 shows a day, and there's a lot that goes into these shows, from news to sports to entertainment to politics to, you know, interviews, and it's pretty jam-packed. And so we really do hit the ground running here. When I come to work, shortly after I get here, I'm either doing live cut-ins on the air, or we'll be in a meeting developing what we're going to be putting in our shows, and then before you know it, it's showtime and we're on the air and it's boom, 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 and then you never know, you know, if today's show is going to call to do a story or not. But if not, it's, you know, getting ready for the next day. And for me, it's going home and being a mom, which is a new role for me, and that takes up a majority of my day. I feel like I never sleep anymore, but the reward is well worth it.
So what do you enjoy doing when you have free time?
Spending time with my family, spending time with my little boy. I mean, he's just 4 months old, and he is just so precious. He's just so wide-eyed, and just to look at him and think of all that I've seen in this world, and wonder about all that he will possibly face. And you know, the side of me that does humanitarian aid work, the side of me that does charity work and does work for Help the Hungry, wants to make this place a better a world for him, if you will, and for those like him, because I know there are so many children out there that won't get this opportunity, and I see them on the ground in the many countries that I've traveled to, especially in Vietnam, and the immense poverty and the lack of education, just because of the fact that a lot of families can't afford to send their kids to school. They can't afford to get them food or pencils or paper or, you know, shoes needed to make that trek to school. And for me as a mom and as a human and as an immigrant to this country, it's really important that I do what I can to try to help in that aspect.
Could you tell me about what are its goals in the future?
For Help the Hungry started in 2000, so we've been at this for about 16 years now. And it was really a labor of love, because when my mother and I first went back to Vietnam, it's one thing to hear the stories about the poverty, people living in grass huts with dirt floors, using the restrooms in the same creeks, dirty creeks where they bathe. To hear that is one thing, but to see it with your own eyes, it was heartbreaking. When we go back to Vietnam, we want to be able to help, and help in a bigger way than just us and what we can pack in a couple of suitcases. So I knew nothing about starting a nonprofit at all, but I did the mounds and mounds of paperwork to try to get it federally approved, which it is. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, federally approved here in the U.S. And since then, we've provided food, clothing, hygienic supplies, all sorts of humanitarian aid. But since that time, we've developed and we partnered with different organizations to provide dental care as well. We also provide, we build water wells so that people in the remote areas, especially along the Mekong Delta, are able to get fresh water down there, because a lot of times they are the ones that are bathing and drinking from the same creeks and rivers where they, you know, use the restroom, where they fish, where boats travel down, and that's just that's not, you know, something that you want children to be ingesting, or families alone, because it can cause all kinds of health problems. So we are building clean drinking water wells down there. We have an initiative where we are providing mosquito nets in malaria-prone areas, and that is making a big difference. And you know, it's also going to be even more important should this Zika virus continue to spread across the globe, as we're seeing it spread in many areas already. So, and we're always looking for ways to expand and to do more and to be more of a permanent source of aid than just you know, smaller sources where it's just, you know, food, clothing, hygienic supplies. That's why we've really focused on the water wells as a main source.
You were born in Saigon, and your family fled South Vietnam right after the fall of Saigon.
Right.
So does this personal history have any influence on your life?
Oh,
your
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I was told from a very young age the story of my family's plight. I was too young to remember it. I was only, you know, not even a year old at the time. But to go through what my parents had to go through, especially my mother, to leave her family behind during such a critical time in her life. She was only 22 years old. I can't even imagine that. I just had a baby 4 months ago. And to think to grab my child right now and be forced to go and to flee into another country and not knowing if I'd ever see my family again, I can't even imagine trying to make that decision. But not only did she make that decision, but we had to go through 3 different refugee camps. And it was hard. In fact, in one of those refugee camps, I almost died because of the lack of baby food, and I just really wasn't taking in anything. But luckily, we did, and we got that golden ticket to America. Like so many Vietnamese during the war did not get that ability to come to the U.S. and to experience this freedom and opportunity that we do. So I don't take that for granted one bit. I know that whatever happens in this country, it's because my parents made great sacrifices for that, and for me to just squander it would be awful. So, and that's something that I'm going to teach my child as well, that we come from a rich history, from a country that fought very hard, but now this is our country, and in this country, anything truly is possible.
Thank you very much for your time, your support.
Thank you, I appreciate it.